You've been carrying invisible chains your entire life. Chains of fear, chains of doubt, chains of other people's opinions. But here's the truth. Those chains were never locked. They only exist in your mind. What if the very limits you thought were holding you back were nothing more than illusions? And what if today you finally had the courage to break them? Introduction. Welcome to Break Your Own Chains, an audiobook designed to help you shatter the barriers that keep you from living your fullest life. Inside these chapters, you'll uncover the hidden forces that hold you down: fear, self-doubt, procrastination, and the weight of past mistakes. More importantly, you'll learn how to crush them. This is not just another motivational talk. This is a blueprint for freedom, a roadmap to help you reclaim your power, rewrite your story, and run with unstoppable momentum toward the life you deserve. Whether you're battling inner voices that whisper you can't, or external forces that try to box you in, this audiobook will give you the tools to rise, to fight, and to finally break your own chains. Chapter 1. Recognizing your chains. Before you can break free, you must first understand what has been holding you in place. Many people move through life unaware of the invisible chains that guide their steps, restrict their movements, and shape their choices. These chains are not made of iron or steel, yet they are often stronger than any physical barrier. They are woven from past experiences, inherited beliefs, societal expectations, and personal fears. To recognize them requires courage, because it means looking closely at your life and asking the questions that are easiest to avoid. Think for a moment about the choices you make every day. Why do you wake up at the time you do? Why do you speak in the way you speak? Why do you pursue certain goals while ignoring others that once sparked your imagination? The chains in your life often reveal themselves in these subtle patterns. Perhaps it is the voice of a teacher who once told you that you were not talented enough. Perhaps it is the echo of a parent who reminded you to be careful, to play it safe, to never take risks. Perhaps it is the unspoken rule of a workplace or a community that teaches you to stay within the lines, to never step outside of what is considered acceptable. These influences, repeated often enough, create invisible boundaries in your mind. Recognizing your chains does not mean blaming others for your current situation. It is not about pointing fingers at those who may have spoken words that hurt or imposed limits that shaped your beliefs. It is about becoming aware of the origin of these boundaries and understanding how they still live inside you today. A chain becomes most powerful when it goes unnoticed. When you start to see it clearly, its strength begins to weaken. One of the most common chains is fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of disappointment. These fears whisper to you when you consider taking a step into the unknown. They remind you of the last time something did not work out. They bring images of embarrassment, loss, or regret. Fear convinces you that it is safer to remain where you are, even if where you are does not fulfill you. The problem with fear is not that it exists, but that it often disguises itself as reason. It tells you that you are being practical, that you are avoiding unnecessary risk, that you are simply choosing wisely. Yet, if you look closely, you will see that fear is often the silent architect of a life lived below its potential. Another chain is doubt. Doubt arises when you begin to question whether you are worthy of your goals, whether you have the ability to achieve them, whether success is truly meant for someone like you. Doubt does not arrive suddenly. It is planted over years through comparison, criticism, and disappointment. You may remember a time when you were young, when your imagination was limitless and your ambitions felt natural. But over time, doubt crept in. It taught you to scale down your dreams to fit what seemed realistic. It whispered that perhaps you were asking for too much, reaching too far, wanting more than you deserved. Recognizing doubt as a chain means noticing when these thoughts appear and tracing them back to their roots. There are also chains forged from habit. Humans are creatures of routine, and while habits can serve you, they can also trap you. Perhaps you stay in a job you dislike because it feels familiar. Perhaps you repeat patterns in relationships because they are comfortable, even when they do not bring joy. Habits can be invisible prisons, keeping you locked in cycles that no longer serve you. To recognize these chains is to question the routines you follow without thought, to examine whether they move you toward freedom or keep you standing still. Then there are the chains of expectation. These can be some of the heaviest because they are tied to the people you care about most. Families, friends, colleagues, and communities often have clear ideas of who you should be and how you should live. Sometimes those expectations align with your own desires, but often they do not. You may feel pressure to pursue a particular career, live in a certain way, or maintain an image that earns approval. Breaking free from these expectations does not mean turning your back on those you love. It means learning to listen to your own voice more closely than to the voices around you. To truly recognize your chains, you must be willing to pause and reflect. Ask yourself, when was the last time I made a decision purely out of desire, without fear, without doubt, without seeking approval? How often do I silence my own instincts to follow the safer path? In what areas of my life do I feel restricted, as if there is a wall I cannot move past? These questions are not always comfortable, but they are essential. The act of asking them is itself an act of courage, because it begins to shine light on the places where your chains live. It is also important to recognize that chains are not always negative influences that entered your life against your will. Sometimes they are values and beliefs you adopted to survive or to belong. For example, being taught to avoid risks may have kept you safe in childhood. Seeking approval may have helped you connect with others. Doubting yourself may have prevented overconfidence in moments when humility was needed. But what once served you can eventually limit you. Chains that were once useful can, over time, become obstacles. Recognizing them means appreciating their role in your past while understanding that they no longer serve your future. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. The moment you notice the patterns, the fears, the doubts, the expectations, and the habits that have silently guided your choices, you begin to loosen their hold. Recognition does not break the chains completely, but it places the key in your hand. It allows you to see that change is possible, that another way of living is available, and that you are capable of choosing differently. The journey of breaking your chains will not be about sudden, dramatic transformation. It will be about steady progress, about noticing the moments when you would have stayed silent but choose to speak, when you would have hesitated but choose to act, when you would have settled but choose to reach. Recognition gives you the clarity to see these moments for what they are, opportunities to live with greater freedom. As you move forward, remember that your chains do not define you. They are not evidence of weakness, but reminders of the experiences that shaped you. They show you where you have been, not where you must stay. Recognizing them is the first act of strength. It is the point at which you stop moving unconsciously and begin to live with intention. When you look at your life through this lens, you may begin to notice the subtle patterns everywhere. The hesitation before raising your hand in a meeting, the quiet acceptance of treatment that does not honor your worth, the way you postpone the pursuit of a dream because the timing never feels right. These are not isolated moments. They are reflections of the chains you carry. But once you see them, you cannot unsee them. That awareness will stay with you, guiding you toward new choices. Recognizing your chains is not about judgment. It is about compassion. It is about looking at yourself with honesty, but also with kindness. You are not broken for having chains. Everyone has them. The difference lies in whether you continue to let them control your life or whether you decide to rise above them. By listening to this audiobook, by beginning this journey, you are already taking the first step. You are already loosening the grip of what once held you. In the chapters ahead, you will learn how to break these chains fully. You will learn how to replace fear with courage, doubt with confidence, and limitation with possibility. But for now, let this recognition settle in. Look closely at your life and notice where the invisible barriers appear. They are not here to defeat you. They are here to show you the exact places where your strength is waiting to grow. And when you see them clearly, when you finally recognize the chains that have guided your steps, you will know with certainty that they can be broken. Chapter 2. The Lie of Limitations. Limitations often appear as solid walls, standing firmly in front of us, convincing us that there is no way forward. They seem absolute, immovable, and beyond question. We accept them as facts of life, as unchangeable truths that shape what is possible. Yet most limitations are not walls at all. They are illusions, carefully constructed over years of experience, social conditioning, and self-perception. The truth is that many of the limits you believe in are not real. They are lies that have taken root in your mind and disguised themselves as reality. Consider how often you have told yourself that something is impossible. Perhaps you said you were not the type of person who could start a business, or that you were too old to learn a new skill, or that you lacked the intelligence to succeed in a certain field. These statements feel like observations, but they are often conclusions drawn from fear, past setbacks, or comparisons to others. They are not facts, they are interpretations. And once you begin to accept them as facts, they harden into the walls you call limitations. The most dangerous aspect of limitations is not that they exist, but that they are rarely questioned. When you were young, you probably believed you could become anything. Children dream of being astronauts, artists, explorers, inventors. The world is wide, and the possibilities are endless. But as you grow older, you start to hear a different narrative. You are told to be realistic, to lower your expectations, to aim for something safe. Each time you adopt one of these lessons, you add another brick to the wall. Over time, what once felt limitless becomes a narrow corridor defined by rules you never consciously chose. It is important to understand that most limitations are inherited. They are passed down by family, by teachers, by culture, and by the communities you belong to. If your parents believed money was always scarce, you may carry that belief, even if opportunities for abundance surround you. If a teacher once told you that you were not creative, you may carry that voice into adulthood, doubting every new idea you have. If society tells you that your background, your gender, or your circumstances restrict what is possible, you may quietly accept those messages and never attempt to prove them wrong. These limitations are not truths. They are lies spoken often enough that they began to sound convincing. When you look closely at those who have achieved extraordinary things, you will notice that they faced the same supposed limits as everyone else. The difference was not in the obstacles, but in their willingness to challenge the narrative. History is full of examples. People who broke records that others believed were physically impossible. Innovators who created inventions that experts dismissed as unrealistic. Individuals who rose from poverty, hardship, or discrimination to achieve greatness. Their success was not born from an absence of limits, but from the courage to see those limits for what they were: illusions. You may wonder, if limitations are lies, why do they feel so real? The answer lies in repetition and reinforcement. Every time you hesitate because of fear, every time you hold back because of doubt, every time you compare yourself unfavorably to others, you reinforce the boundary in your mind. Over time, the lie becomes so familiar that it feels like truth. It is not the strength of the limit that holds you, it is the strength of your belief in it. One way to begin dismantling these lies is to examine their source. Ask yourself where your sense of limitation came from. Did someone tell you that you were not capable? Did you fail once and assume it meant you would always fail? Did you compare yourself to someone else and conclude that you would never measure up? When you trace a limitation back to its origin, you often discover that it is based on a single moment or a single voice that you allowed to grow louder than your own. Seeing this clearly allows you to question whether that source deserves the authority you have given it. Another step is to notice the language you use with yourself. Words shape beliefs, and beliefs shape possibilities. When you hear yourself say, "I can't," pause and ask if that is truly accurate. Is it that you cannot, or is it that you have never tried, or that you tried once and stopped, or that you fear what might happen if you succeed? Language has the power to either build walls or open doors. By changing the words you use, you begin to shift the limits you believe in. It is also essential to recognize that limitations often serve as protection. Believing you cannot do something can shield you from the pain of failure or the discomfort of risk. The lie of limitation can feel safer than the truth of possibility, because possibility demands effort, vulnerability, and courage. But safety built on limitation is not safety at all. It is confinement. True safety comes from growth, from resilience, from knowing that even if you stumble, you are capable of standing again. Imagine for a moment a runner approaching the finish line of a marathon. Their body aches, their breath is heavy, and every part of them feels like stopping. Their mind whispers that they cannot continue, that they have reached their limit. Yet somehow, they take another step, and then another, and the finish line comes closer. What happened in that moment? The limit was not real. It was a signal of discomfort, not impossibility. The runner discovered that beyond the lie of limitation was a deeper strength they had not yet tapped. The same is true in your own life. Many of the moments when you feel you cannot go further are the very moments when you are about to discover a new level of your potential. Recognizing the lie of limitations does not mean ignoring reality. There are genuine constraints in life: time, resources, and circumstances. But these are not the same as the internal limits you place on yourself. Real constraints challenge you to be creative, to adapt, to grow. False limitations tell you not to try at all. The key is to separate the two, to acknowledge reality while refusing to let illusion dictate your choices. The next time you encounter a thought that tells you what you cannot do, pause and examine it. Ask whether it is a reflection of truth or an echo of the past. Ask whether it comes from your own experience or from someone else's opinion. Ask whether it is protecting you or confining you. In that moment of questioning, you begin to loosen the hold of the lie. As you move through this journey, you will come to see that the limits you once believed in were never as strong as they seemed. They were shadows, not walls. They were whispers, not truths. And when you challenge them, they often dissolve under the weight of your determination. The lie of limitations has shaped much of your life so far, but it does not have to shape the rest. You have the power to question, to challenge, and to rewrite the narrative. You have the ability to replace the illusion of "I can't" with the possibility of "I will try." And as you take those steps, one by one, you will discover that the boundaries you once accepted as permanent were never real at all. Freedom begins with recognition, but transformation begins with the refusal to believe the lie. When you see limitations for what they are, you reclaim the power to choose, to act, and to rise. The walls that once seemed immovable reveal themselves as fragile, and with each act of courage, you push through them. In time, you will look back and realize that the limits you lived under were never truly there. They existed only in your mind, and once you saw through them, the path ahead opened wide. The lie of limitations no longer has power over you because you have chosen to see the truth. Chapter 3. Rewriting your story. Every person carries a story about who they are, what they can do, and where they belong in the world. This story is not written on paper but in the mind, repeated silently through thoughts, choices, and actions. It begins in childhood, shaped by family, culture, and early experiences, and it continues to evolve as life unfolds. Some parts of this story empower you, filling you with confidence and direction. Other parts, however, limit you, keeping you bound to an identity that no longer reflects your true potential. To break free from your chains, you must learn to rewrite the story you tell yourself. The story you carry is powerful because it determines the way you see every situation. If your story is that you are resilient, then obstacles become challenges you know you can overcome. If your story is that you are unlucky or undeserving, then even opportunities can appear as traps or illusions. The story becomes a lens, coloring every decision. And because stories feel familiar, they can be difficult to question. After all, you have been living with them for years, perhaps decades, and they feel like the truth. But the truth is that your story is not fixed. It is a narrative, and narratives can be changed. Think about the times in your life when something did not go the way you hoped. Perhaps you failed an exam, lost a job, or watched a relationship fall apart. In those moments, you may have told yourself a story to explain what happened. Maybe you said you were not smart enough, not skilled enough, or not lovable enough. That story became a way to make sense of the disappointment. Over time, the story repeated itself, and soon it became part of your identity. You began to carry it with you into new experiences, expecting the same outcomes, preparing for the same pain. But what if the story you told yourself was only one version of the truth? What if, instead of "I am not smart enough," the story was "I did not prepare enough this time, but I can learn and improve"? What if, instead of "I am not lovable," the story was "That relationship was not right for me, but I am still worthy of love"? The facts remain the same. You failed, you lost, you struggled, but the meaning changes. And meaning is everything. The meaning you assign to your experiences determines whether they become weights that hold you down or lessons that lift you higher. Rewriting your story does not mean pretending that pain never happened. It does not mean erasing the past or denying the struggles you faced. It means looking at the same events through a new lens, one that empowers rather than restricts. It means understanding that your past experiences are chapters, not definitions. They are moments in time, not the entirety of your identity. For many people, the challenge is that their story has been written largely by others. Parents, teachers, friends, and even strangers contribute lines and paragraphs. A single comment from a teacher about your abilities can echo for years. A single moment of rejection from a peer can shape how you see yourself in relationships. Over time, these voices blend into your own until it becomes hard to distinguish which parts of the story are truly yours. To rewrite your story, you must first separate your voice from the voices of others. One way to begin is to reflect on the beliefs you hold about yourself. Do you believe you are capable, worthy, intelligent, or creative? Or do you believe you are limited, inadequate, or destined for less? Ask yourself where those beliefs came from. If you trace them back, you may find that some of your deepest convictions originated not from your own experience, but from the influence of others. Once you see this, you can begin to decide which beliefs deserve a place in your story and which do not. Another step in rewriting your story is to consciously choose the role you want to play. Too often, people cast themselves as the victim in their own lives, replaying the narrative of how they were wronged or how circumstances kept them down. While it is important to honor the reality of hardship, It is equally important to recognize that you are not limited to the role of the victim. You can be the hero, the one who rises despite the odds, the one who turns struggle into strength. Shifting roles in your story changes the way you interpret the past and the way you approach the future. Imagine for a moment that your life is a book, and you are both the author and the main character. If the last chapter ended in pain or failure, you still hold the pen. You decide what happens next. You decide whether the story ends there or whether it becomes the turning point for a powerful comeback. Too often, people stop writing after a difficult chapter, believing the story is over. But as long as you are alive, your story continues, and every new day is a blank page waiting to be written. Rewriting your story also requires imagination. You must be able to picture a version of yourself that is not confined by the old narrative. If you have always seen yourself as someone who gives up easily, you must imagine what it would feel like to persist. If you have always seen yourself as someone who is overlooked, you must imagine what it would feel like to stand confidently in the spotlight. At first, this may feel uncomfortable, even unrealistic, because the old story has been with you for so long. But the more vividly you imagine the new story, the more it begins to feel possible. Imagination is the seed of transformation. As you begin to live into this new story, your actions will follow. The way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the choices you make, all will begin to reflect the narrative you have chosen. Change does not happen overnight, but each small step reinforces the new identity. Over time, the old story fades, replaced by one that aligns with your true potential. It is also important to practice compassion as you rewrite your story. You may look back at the old narrative and feel frustration for the years you spent believing in limits or playing small. But every story, even the limiting ones, serves a purpose. They helped you survive. They gave you a sense of identity in a world that can be overwhelming. Recognize their role, thank them for what they provided, and then release them. Compassion for your past self allows you to move forward without bitterness, carrying only the wisdom of what you have learned. Rewriting your story is not a single act, but a continuous process. Life will continue to challenge you, to test your beliefs, and to offer new experiences. Each challenge is an invitation to refine the story, to choose once again the meaning you assign to events, and to grow into the role you have chosen. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes, until one day you find that the story you live by is no longer one of chains, but of freedom. As you reflect on your own story, consider what narratives you are ready to release. Consider what new story you are ready to tell. Do you want to be the person defined by doubt and fear, or do you want to be the person defined by courage and resilience? The choice is always yours. The past may shape you, but it does not define you. You are the author, and you hold the pen. When you choose to rewrite your story, you reclaim your power. You no longer live as a character written by someone else's hand. You become the creator of your own identity, the designer of your own path, and the hero of your own journey. And with each page you write, you move closer to the life you were always capable of living. Chapter 5. Breaking the Fear Cycle. Fear is one of the most powerful chains that holds people back. It does not always arrive in obvious ways, like panic or terror. More often, it appears quietly, shaping decisions in subtle ways. It convinces you to delay a dream until the timing is better. It tells you to avoid risks because stability is safer. It whispers that speaking up will only bring judgment, that trying something new will lead to failure, that stepping outside the familiar will cost too much. Fear does not shout, it persuades. And because of that, it can feel like wisdom when in reality it is limitation. The fear cycle begins with a thought. You imagine something you want to do, starting a business, changing careers, expressing a feeling, moving to a new place. Immediately, your mind presents the risks. What if you fail? What if others disapprove? What if you lose what you already have? The thought of risk brings discomfort, and to avoid that discomfort, you step back. You tell yourself it is not the right time, or that you are not ready, or that it is not worth the effort. Stepping back reduces the discomfort, which brings a sense of relief. But that relief reinforces the idea that avoidance is the safest path, and so the next time fear appears, you are even more likely to retreat. Over time, this cycle becomes a pattern. The more you avoid fear, the stronger it becomes, and the smaller your world grows. Breaking the fear cycle begins with awareness. You must notice when fear is guiding your choices and be willing to question whether the fear is protecting you or simply confining you. There are times when fear serves a genuine purpose, keeping you safe from real harm. But many of the fears that shape daily decisions are not about survival. They are about discomfort, uncertainty, or the possibility of judgment. They feel urgent, but they are not dangerous. The key is learning to distinguish between fear that warns and fear that limits. Once you recognize limiting fear, the next step is to face it in small ways. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act in spite of it. When you take even the smallest action toward what frightens you, you begin to loosen the chain. Imagine you are afraid of speaking in public. The first step is not to deliver a speech to 1,000 people. It might be to share a thought in a meeting or to speak to a small group of friends. Each time you act in spite of fear, the cycle shifts. Instead of avoidance bringing relief, action brings growth. Relief no longer comes from retreating. It comes from realizing that fear was not as powerful as it seemed. Breaking the cycle also requires a shift in how you interpret fear itself. Many people see fear as a signal to stop, as proof that they are not ready. But fear often appears when you are about to grow, when you are stepping into territory that stretches you beyond your comfort zone. In this sense, fear can be a sign that you are on the right path. If you only move where there is no fear, you will remain where you are. If you are willing to move through fear, you will discover abilities and strengths you never knew you had. It can also help to remember that fear thrives in imagination. Most of what you fear exists only in your mind. You picture the worst-case scenario, replay it in detail, and feel the emotions as though it is already happening. Yet, if you look back at your life, you will notice that many of the things you feared never happened. And when challenges did come, you handled them better than you expected. The mind magnifies fear to keep you safe, but in doing so, it often prevents you from living fully. Recognizing this tendency allows you to question whether your fear is based on reality or on imagined outcomes. Another powerful way to break the fear cycle is to anchor yourself in purpose. When your focus is solely on the fear, it feels overwhelming. But when your focus is on something larger than the fear, a goal, a dream, a value you hold deeply, the fear begins to shrink. Imagine a runner pushing through exhaustion to finish a race. Their body tells them to stop, but their purpose, whether it is to prove something to themselves or to honor a commitment, carries them forward. Purpose gives meaning to discomfort, and when discomfort has meaning, it becomes bearable. It is also important to treat yourself with compassion as you confront fear. Breaking the cycle does not mean you will never feel afraid again. Fear will always appear when you step into the unknown. What matters is how you respond. Instead of criticizing yourself for feeling fear, remind yourself that fear is part of growth. Instead of demanding perfection, celebrate progress. Each time you face fear, no matter how small the step, you are building resilience. The cycle of fear is not broken in a single moment. It is broken gradually, with each choice to move forward instead of retreating. Some days you will feel stronger, and other days you may still step back. But over time, the balance shifts. Avoidance becomes less frequent, courage becomes more natural, and fear loses its power. Think of fear as a shadow. It looks large and dark from a distance, but when you approach it, you see that it is only a projection. By stepping toward it, you bring it into light, and it begins to fade. Your chains are not as strong as they appear, and fear is not as permanent as it feels. The more you practice moving through fear, the freer you become. As you reflect on your own life, consider where fear has shaped your path. Ask yourself what opportunities you turned away from because the risk felt too great. Ask yourself what conversations you avoided, what dreams you delayed, what experiences you denied yourself. These are the places where fear still holds a chain. They are also the places where your greatest freedom waits to be found. Breaking the fear cycle does not mean eliminating fear. It means learning to live with it in a new way, to see it as a companion on the path of growth rather than an enemy to avoid. It means allowing fear to be present without letting it dictate your choices. It means choosing courage again and again until courage becomes more familiar than retreat. And when you do, you will discover something remarkable. You will realize that the strength you have been seeking has been within you all along. Fear was never the barrier. Belief in fear was. Once you see this clearly, the cycle is broken, and the path ahead opens wider than you ever imagined. Chapter 6. The Energy of Resilience. Life does not unfold in a straight line. No matter how carefully you plan, there will be moments when circumstances shift, when opportunities slip away, when setbacks come unexpectedly. These moments can feel heavy, as though they drain the very energy you need to continue. Yet within these experiences lies a force that can renew you, strengthen you, and carry you forward. That force is resilience. Resilience is not about never falling down. It is about the capacity to rise each time you do. It is about transforming difficulties into strength, learning from pain, and finding energy even in the moments that feel most discouraging. Many people think of resilience as an innate quality, something you are either born with or not. But resilience is not a fixed trait. It is a skill, a muscle that can be developed over time. Each time you face hardship and choose to rise rather than remain on the ground, you build resilience. Each time you learn from failure, instead of letting it define you, you strengthen your capacity to endure. Over the years, resilience becomes not just a response to difficulty, but a source of energy that fuels everything you do. At the heart of resilience is perspective. Two people can face the same setback and respond in entirely different ways. One may see it as proof that they are not capable and decide to give up. The other may see it as feedback, an opportunity to adjust and try again. The event is the same, but the meaning assigned to it changes everything. Resilience begins with this shift in perspective. It allows you to look at challenges not as permanent barriers, but as temporary hurdles that can be overcome. Consider for a moment the image of a tree in the middle of a storm. The wind bends it, the rain beats against it, and for a time it looks as though it might break. Yet, when the storm passes, the tree still stands, and its roots, having been tested, grow deeper into the earth. Resilience is the same. The storms of life will bend you, but if you allow them, they will also ground you more firmly in your strength. What once seemed like a threat becomes a source of growth. One of the most powerful aspects of resilience is that it generates energy. At first, this may sound contradictory, because difficulties often leave you feeling drained. But when you rise after falling, you discover an inner strength you did not know you had. That discovery fills you with energy. It reminds you that if you can endure one challenge, you can endure another. Each test you pass becomes a source of confidence, and confidence itself becomes fuel. Resilience also comes from acceptance. Many people waste energy resisting reality, wishing things were different, replaying events in their mind with regret or anger. But resistance consumes energy without changing the situation. Acceptance does not mean liking what happened or resigning yourself to it. It means acknowledging reality as it is, so that you can use your energy to move forward instead of fighting what cannot be undone. Acceptance clears the path for action, and action is what transforms setbacks into progress. Another key element of resilience is connection. When you face hardship alone, it is easy to feel overwhelmed. But when you allow yourself to lean on others, to share your struggles and accept support, you find new strength. Resilience does not mean carrying the weight by yourself. It means knowing when to reach out, when to ask for help, when to draw on the encouragement and wisdom of those who care for you. Community can provide the reminder that you are not defined by a single moment, and that together, obstacles can be faced with greater courage. It is also important to recognize the role of self-compassion in resilience. Too often, people respond to failure by criticizing themselves harshly. They replay their mistakes, judge their actions, and reinforce the belief that they are not good enough. But self-criticism weakens resilience because it drains energy instead of restoring it. Self-compassion, on the other hand, allows you to treat yourself with kindness, to see mistakes as part of learning, and to keep moving without carrying unnecessary shame. When you replace harsh judgment with understanding, you preserve the energy you need to rise again. Resilience thrives in small acts as much as in great struggles. It is not only about surviving major life events, but also about the daily practice of persistence. It is in the moments when you choose to keep going despite fatigue, when you continue working toward a goal, even after encountering obstacles, when you hold on to hope in the face of uncertainty. These small moments accumulate, shaping your ability to meet larger challenges with strength. Each act of resilience adds to the store of energy you can draw upon when you need it most. The cycle of resilience is self-reinforcing. When you face a setback and rise from it, you prove to yourself that you are capable. That proof builds confidence, which in turn makes you more willing to face future challenges. Over time, you no longer fear difficulty in the same way, because you know from experience that you can endure it. This confidence does not eliminate hardship, but it changes your relationship with it. Hardship becomes less of a threat and more of a test, and each test becomes another opportunity to grow. Think of the runner who stumbles during a race. The fall hurts, and for a moment it feels easier to stay down. But when the runner stands, brushes off the dust, and continues forward, they discover that the fall did not end their race. The energy they gain from rising is greater than the energy they lost in falling. Life is much the same. Each time you stand after stumbling, you carry with you a deeper belief in your ability to continue. That belief becomes energy, and that energy becomes resilience. Resilience is not about ignoring pain or pretending that setbacks do not matter. It is about allowing pain to teach you without letting it define you. It is about learning from mistakes without being trapped by them. It is about holding hope even when the path ahead is unclear. It is about knowing that strength is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to keep moving in the presence of it. As you reflect on your own life, think of the times when you have already shown resilience. Perhaps you overcame a challenge that once felt impossible. Perhaps you endured loss and found a way to continue. Perhaps you faced failure and used it as fuel for growth. These moments are evidence of the resilience already within you. They are proof that you can rise, that you can learn, that you can continue. By remembering them, you remind yourself that the energy of resilience is always available, waiting to be drawn upon when needed. Resilience does not guarantee an easy life. Storms will still come. and setbacks will still appear. But resilience changes the way you move through them. Instead of being crushed by difficulty, you are strengthened by it. Instead of seeing challenges as signs to stop, you see them as invitations to grow. Instead of letting hardship drain you, you allow it to fuel you. This shift in perspective transforms not only how you face obstacles, but also how you live each day. In the end, resilience is the energy of renewal. It is the force that allows you to begin again, no matter how many times you have fallen. It is the quiet strength that whispers you are capable, even when circumstances suggest otherwise. It is the light that shines after the storm, reminding you that growth is always possible. And as you cultivate it, you discover that no matter what comes your way, you carry within you the power to rise again and again. Chapter 7: Cutting Out Toxic Voices. Every life is surrounded by voices. Some encourage, inspire, and lift you higher. Others criticize, belittle, or sow seeds of doubt. These voices come from family, friends, colleagues, communities, and increasingly from the endless stream of information and commentary that fills your daily life. Not all voices deserve equal weight, yet many people allow the most discouraging ones to echo the loudest inside their minds. The result is a constant chorus of limitation, convincing you to shrink, to stay silent, and to play small. To live unchained, you must learn to recognize which voices deserve your attention and which must be silenced. Toxic voices are not always easy to identify. Sometimes they are loud and obvious, spoken through harsh criticism or constant negativity. Other times, they are subtle, delivered through backhanded compliments, dismissive comments, or expectations that box you in. A toxic voice can belong to someone close to you, someone who believes they are protecting you by discouraging risk or reminding you of your limitations. It can also come from strangers, through social media or cultural messages that tell you what is possible and what is not. Over time, if these voices are left unchecked, they can become internalized until you begin to repeat their words to yourself without realizing where they came from. The first step in cutting out toxic voices is recognizing their presence. Pay attention to how you feel after spending time with certain people or exposing yourself to certain environments. Do you feel encouraged, energized, and capable, or do you feel drained, doubtful, and diminished? Your emotional response is often the clearest indicator of whether a voice is healthy or toxic. Encouraging voices may challenge you, but they do so in a way that strengthens you. Toxic voices challenge you in a way that weakens you, making you question your worth rather than sharpening your skills. It is also important to notice the pattern of repetition. A single critical comment does not define a person as toxic, and honest feedback, even when uncomfortable, can be valuable. But when criticism becomes the dominant theme, when negativity overshadows encouragement, the voice becomes harmful. Repetition is what reinforces the chains. Hearing "you are not good enough" once may sting, but hearing it dozens of times can shape your belief about yourself. That is why becoming conscious of repeated messages is essential to breaking free. Cutting out toxic voices does not always mean severing relationships completely. In some cases, it may mean setting boundaries, limiting exposure, or choosing not to internalize what is said. Boundaries are acts of self-respect, not rejection. They communicate clearly that you are willing to engage with others, but not at the cost of your well-being. For example, you may decide not to discuss certain topics with a person who consistently undermines your goals, or you may reduce the time you spend in environments where negativity dominates. These small acts of boundary setting gradually quiet the voices that hold you back. At times, however, cutting out toxic voices does require greater distance. There may be relationships that consistently erode your confidence, environments that never allow you to grow, or influences that do more harm than good. Choosing to step away from these is not an act of cruelty, but of courage. It takes strength to prioritize your growth over the comfort of familiarity. It takes clarity to see that staying in a toxic environment may feel easier in the short term, but will cost you deeply in the long term. Removing yourself from such voices creates space for healthier, more supportive influences to enter. Toxic voices are not only external, they can also live inside you. The most powerful negative voice is often the one you have adopted as your own. Over the years, you may have repeated the criticisms of others so often that they now echo as self-talk. You may hear yourself saying, "I'm not ready, I always fail, I don't belong." These are not truths, but borrowed voices, woven into your identity through repetition. Recognizing that your inner critic often originates from external influences allows you to begin quieting it. When you notice these thoughts, pause and ask whether they are genuinely your own or echoes of someone else. Replacing toxic voices requires seeking out healthier ones. Surround yourself with people who uplift and challenge you in equal measure. Seek mentors, friends, and communities that believe in your potential, even when you doubt yourself. Listen to stories of resilience and growth, exposing yourself to examples that remind you of what is possible. Just as negativity reinforces itself through repetition, encouragement becomes stronger when you hear it consistently. Over time, positive voices become the ones you internalize, shaping your inner dialogue into one of possibility rather than limitation. It is also worth remembering that no voice carries authority unless you grant it. People can speak words to you, but it is your choice whether those words take root. If someone tells you that you cannot succeed, you can choose to let that voice echo, or you can choose to release it. This choice may not always feel easy, especially if the voice belongs to someone you respect or love. But choosing does not mean denying the importance of that person. It means recognizing that you, and only you, are the author of your story. Their voice is one perspective, not the truth of who you are. Silencing toxic voices does not mean living in denial of criticism or difficulty. Constructive feedback is essential for growth, and challenges are part of every journey. The difference lies in intention. Healthy voices offer feedback to build you, to guide you toward improvement. Toxic voices offer criticism to diminish you, to hold you back, or to keep you small. The art of discernment lies in recognizing which is which and choosing wisely which voices to keep close. As you begin to quiet the toxic voices around you, you will notice a shift. Space opens within you. Space once filled with doubt and discouragement, now available for clarity and confidence. The silence left behind is not emptiness but possibility. It allows your own voice to grow stronger, to guide you more clearly, to become the dominant influence in your decisions. And as your inner voice strengthens, you will find that you rely less and less on external validation because the encouragement you once sought outside yourself now comes from within. Cutting out toxic voices is not a single act, but an ongoing practice. Life will continue to bring people and situations that test your boundaries, that offer words which could, if accepted, become chains. But each time you recognize them and choose differently, you reinforce your freedom. Each time you set a boundary or dismiss a limiting belief, you break another link. Gradually, the chorus of voices in your life begins to change, until it is filled more with encouragement than discouragement, more with hope than with doubt. In the end, the goal is not to silence every negative sound, but to choose which ones you allow to shape your life. You cannot control everything that is said to you, but you can control what you internalize. You can decide which voices to carry with you and which to release. You can decide which voices deserve space in your mind and which do not. And in making these decisions, you reclaim your power. Your life is too valuable to be directed by voices that diminish you. Your dreams are too important to be silenced by those who cannot see them. And your potential is too vast to be confined by chains of criticism and doubt. By cutting out toxic voices, you make room for your own voice to lead, clear and strong. And that voice will guide you not toward limitation, but toward freedom. Chapter 8. Building unstoppable confidence. Confidence is often misunderstood. Many people see it as a personality trait, something a few lucky individuals are born with, while others simply lack. But confidence is not a gift reserved for the chosen few. It is not about being the loudest in the room, the most charismatic in a group, or the person who never hesitates. Real confidence is quieter, deeper, and more enduring. It is the steady belief that you are capable of meeting the challenges of life, not because you will always succeed, but because you know that even if you stumble, you can rise again. Confidence is not arrogance or bravado. It is trust in yourself. And like any form of trust, it is something that can be built, strengthened, and renewed over time. Confidence begins with self-awareness. Before you can believe in yourself, you must know yourself. This means looking honestly at your strengths and your weaknesses, your values and your desires, your patterns of thought and your habits of behavior. Many people shy away from this kind of reflection because they fear what they will find. They believe that confidence comes from ignoring flaws and highlighting strengths. But true confidence is not built on denial. It is built on truth. When you see yourself clearly, you no longer fear your imperfections because you know they do not define you. Instead, they become areas for growth. Self-awareness creates the foundation for a confidence that cannot be easily shaken because it is grounded in reality rather than illusion. From this foundation, confidence grows through action. You cannot think yourself into confidence. You build it by doing. Each time you step into the unknown, take a risk, or try something new, you test your ability to adapt and endure. Whether you succeed or fail is less important than the fact that you acted. Success builds confidence because it proves your ability, but failure builds confidence too, because it proves your resilience. Each action becomes evidence, and over time, the collection of evidence reinforces your belief in yourself. The more you act, the stronger your confidence becomes, until it is no longer dependent on external validation, but rooted in lived experience. One of the greatest obstacles to confidence is comparison. In a world filled with constant images of other people's success, it is easy to measure yourself against standards that do not reflect your own journey. Comparison tells you that you are behind, that you are lacking, that you are not enough. But comparison is a distortion because it focuses on what you can see of others while ignoring what you cannot see. You see the highlights of someone else's life, but not the struggles behind them. You see their results, but not the sacrifices, doubts, and failures that came before. To build unstoppable confidence, you must step away from comparison and return to your own path. The only standard that matters is whether you are moving forward, whether you are growing, and whether you are living in alignment with your values. Confidence also grows from keeping promises to yourself. Every time you say you will do something and follow through, you strengthen your trust in your own word. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you weaken that trust. Many people are careful to honor commitments to others, but neglect the commitments they make to themselves. They say they will start exercising, or write a chapter, or wake up earlier, and then let those promises slide. Over time, this creates a subtle erosion of confidence, because deep down, you begin to doubt your own reliability. The opposite is also true. When you consistently follow through, even on the smallest commitments, you reinforce the belief that you can count on yourself. And when you can count on yourself, confidence becomes unshakable. Another key element of confidence is mastery. When you dedicate yourself to improving in an area, whether it is a skill, a craft, or a field of knowledge, you build competence. Competence fuels confidence because it provides tangible evidence of your ability. The more you practice, the more skilled you become, and the more skilled you are, the more naturally confidence flows. This is why confidence is not simply about positive thinking. It is about consistent practice, learning, and growth. The most confident people are not those who believe blindly in their ability, but those who have proven it to themselves through effort and mastery. Confidence is also influenced by environment. The people you surround yourself with and the spaces you occupy either nurture or diminish your belief in yourself. Supportive environments remind you of your potential, encourage you to take risks, and celebrate your growth. Toxic environments, on the other hand, highlight your flaws, discourage your attempts, and dismiss your progress. To build unstoppable confidence, you must choose your environment wisely. This may mean seeking mentors, cultivating friendships with people who uplift you, or simply creating spaces where you feel safe to experiment and grow. Every voice around you becomes part of your inner dialogue, and the more positive voices you invite in, the stronger your confidence becomes. At the same time, you must cultivate an inner voice that is kind, steady, and encouraging. Confidence is not about silencing all doubt. It is about choosing which voice you listen to. When your inner critic speaks, you can acknowledge it without obeying it. You can remind yourself that fear and doubt are natural, but they do not define your capacity. By consciously choosing to reinforce positive self-talk, you create an internal atmosphere where confidence can thrive. Over time, this practice rewires the patterns of your thoughts so that encouragement becomes the natural response rather than criticism. Confidence is not built overnight. It grows gradually, through repeated action, through learning, through reflection, and through persistence. There will be moments when it wavers, when fear feels stronger, when doubt creeps in. But even in those moments, confidence is not lost. It is simply waiting to be renewed through another act of courage. The more you return to action, the more resilient your confidence becomes, until it feels less like a fragile state and more like a steady presence. To build confidence that is truly unstoppable, you must also embrace vulnerability. Many people believe that confidence means never showing weakness, never admitting uncertainty, never asking for help. But vulnerability is not weakness, it is courage. When you allow yourself to be seen as you are, without masks or pretenses, you affirm that you are enough. Vulnerability strengthens confidence because it removes the fear of being exposed. You no longer waste energy hiding flaws, and that freedom allows your true strength to emerge. Confidence built on vulnerability is stronger than confidence built on pretense, because it cannot be shaken by imperfection. It is also essential to view setbacks not as evidence against your confidence, but as opportunities to reinforce it. When you face a challenge and fall short, it is easy to conclude that you were wrong to believe in yourself. But setbacks are not verdicts. They are lessons. They provide feedback about what worked, what did not, and what can be improved. The act of rising after a setback, of choosing to try again, is itself a demonstration of confidence. It is proof that your belief in yourself is stronger than the outcome of a single moment. Confidence also grows when you anchor it to purpose. When your actions are guided by values and goals that matter deeply to you, confidence becomes less about external approval and more about inner alignment. You no longer need to prove yourself to others because you are living in accordance with your own standards. Purpose gives confidence, depth, and durability. Even when results are uncertain, the knowledge that you are moving toward something meaningful sustains you. Purpose-driven confidence does not waver in the face of setbacks because it is rooted in something larger than any single challenge. Finally, Confidence grows through gratitude. When you take time to recognize how far you have come, to appreciate the skills you have developed, the challenges you have overcome, and the progress you have made, you reinforce the belief in your capacity. Gratitude shifts your focus from what you lack to what you have, from what you cannot do to what you can. This shift creates a sense of abundance, and abundance is fertile ground for confidence. Confidence is not an unreachable state. It is a living, evolving quality, one that you can cultivate each day. By knowing yourself, taking action, keeping promises, practicing mastery, surrounding yourself with supportive voices, nurturing your inner dialogue, embracing vulnerability, learning from setbacks, anchoring to purpose, and practicing gratitude, you build a confidence that is not easily shaken. Over time, this confidence becomes unstoppable, not because it guarantees success in every endeavor, but because it ensures that you will always rise, always learn, and always continue. When you live with unstoppable confidence, the chains of fear and doubt lose their grip. You no longer hesitate at the edge of opportunity because you trust yourself to leap and to land. You no longer silence your voice because you know it deserves to be heard. You no longer measure your worth by comparison because you understand that your path is uniquely yours. Confidence does not mean life will be without challenge, but it does mean that no challenge can define you. And in that steady trust, you find freedom. Chapter 9. Finding your inner runner. Deep within each person lives a force that pushes them forward, even when the body is tired, the mind is heavy, and the path feels endless. It is the same force that keeps a runner moving long after muscles ache and lungs burn, long after the thought of stopping has appeared again and again. This force is persistence, and it is not limited to athletes or adventurers. It exists in everyone, waiting to be discovered and awakened. To find your inner runner is to discover the strength that allows you to continue when everything in you is tempted to stop. It is to uncover the rhythm of resilience that carries you beyond obstacles, beyond discouragement, and beyond the limits you once believed were fixed. Life itself is a kind of marathon. The journey is long, the terrain unpredictable, and the demands unrelenting. There are stretches of ease, where progress feels effortless, when the wind seems at your back and every step brings joy. But there are also stretches where the road climbs steeply, where exhaustion grows heavy, and where each step feels like a battle. Many people prepare themselves only for the smooth parts of the journey, believing that when difficulty arises, it is a sign to stop. Yet it is in the difficult stretches that growth takes place, where strength is forged, and where your inner runner is revealed. The first challenge in finding your inner runner is moving past the barrier of comfort. The body and mind both crave ease, and they often resist effort that stretches beyond the familiar. For a runner, the first miles may feel manageable, but as fatigue sets in, the mind begins to suggest reasons to quit. It reminds them of the pain, the distance left to go, the appeal of rest. In life, the same voice appears when you pursue a dream, face a challenge, or push toward a goal. The voice insists that it is too difficult, that you have gone far enough, that it would be easier to stop. The temptation to give in to this voice is strong, because it offers relief. But the inner runner is born the moment you choose to continue anyway, the moment you take one more step despite the desire to stop. Finding your inner runner also requires patience. A marathon is not won in the first mile, and life's greatest achievements are not reached overnight. Many people abandon their pursuits not because they lack ability, but because they lack patience. They expect progress to be quick and results to be immediate, and when they are not, they lose faith. But the inner runner understands that the journey is long, that growth takes time, and that persistence is more powerful than speed. Each step may feel small, but over time, The accumulation of steps covers great distances. The inner runner does not measure success by how quickly the finish line is reached, but by the willingness to continue moving toward it, mile after mile, day after day. Another aspect of discovering your inner runner is learning to embrace discomfort. Discomfort is not a signal to stop. It is a sign that you are stretching beyond what you have known. Runners expect their muscles to ache, their breathing to quicken, their energy to dip. They know that discomfort is part of the process, not the end of it. In life, discomfort arrives when you take risks, when you step into the unknown, when you grow beyond your old limits. Many people retreat at the first sign of discomfort, interpreting it as danger. But if you learn to embrace it, to see it as proof of progress, you unlock a new level of endurance. Your inner runner thrives not in the absence of discomfort, but in your ability to continue moving through it. The inner runner also draws strength from rhythm. Running long distances is not about constant bursts of speed. It is about finding a steady pace that can be sustained. In life, the same principle applies. The people who endure are not those who push at unsustainable intensity for a short time, but those who create rhythms of effort and rest, discipline and recovery, persistence and reflection. To find your inner runner is to discover your own rhythm, the pattern of living that allows you to move forward steadily without burning out. This rhythm may look different for each person, but the principle is the same. Progress comes not from exhausting yourself in a single sprint, but from sustaining effort over time. Another source of strength for the inner runner is vision. Runners endure the hardest miles by keeping their eyes on the finish line or by focusing on smaller milestones along the way. Without vision, the pain of the present can overwhelm, but with vision, the present becomes bearable because it is connected to a greater purpose. In life, your inner runner is strengthened when you hold clearly to a vision of where you are going. This vision does not have to be the ultimate destination. It can be the next milestone, the next breakthrough, the next achievement that reminds you why you began. When vision is present, persistence has fuel, and when persistence has fuel, endurance becomes possible. The inner runner also thrives on memory. Every time you have faced difficulty in the past and overcome it, you have added to the store of evidence that you are capable. These memories are like reserves of strength, waiting to be drawn upon when the present challenge feels overwhelming. In the middle of a difficult stretch, the runner remembers other races, other miles, other moments when they thought they could not continue and yet did. You too can call upon your history, reminding yourself that you have already survived moments you once thought impossible. These memories are not just recollections, they are sources of energy, proof that you can endure again. Finding your inner runner also involves silence. In the middle of effort, when the body is strained and the mind is full of doubt, a kind of silence emerges. It is the silence that comes when external distractions fade and you are left alone with yourself. Some people fear this silence because it confronts them with their deepest doubts. But if you stay with it, you discover that beneath the noise of fear lies a calm certainty, a steady rhythm that whispers you are stronger than you realize. The inner runner lives in this silence, in the place where excuses fade and only persistence remains. Perhaps the most powerful aspect of finding your inner runner is the realization that limits are further away than you once believed. Many runners speak of a wall, a point when they feel they can go no further. Yet those who continue often discover that beyond the wall lies a second wind, a new surge of energy that carries them forward. In life, the same principle applies. You may believe you have reached the end of your capacity, only to discover that you can go further. Each time you push past a limit, you expand your understanding of what is possible, and each expansion strengthens your inner runner. Your inner runner is not only about endurance in the face of hardship, it is also about joy in the midst of effort. Runners speak of moments when the rhythm of their steps, the flow of their breath, and the movement of their bodies create a sense of freedom. Life, too, offers such moments, when persistence brings not just struggle but joy, when the act of continuing becomes its own reward. Finding your inner runner means not only enduring the hard miles but also discovering the beauty along the way, the moments of fulfillment that come only to those who keep moving forward. As you reflect on your journey, ask yourself where you have stopped too soon, where you have given in to the voice of fatigue, where you have settled for less because persistence felt too hard. These are the places where your inner runner waits to be awakened, and once awakened, it will carry you further than you thought possible. The inner runner is not about perfection or endless strength. Even the most persistent stumble, rest, and doubt. But the inner runner always returns to the path, always rises again, always chooses the next step. And in choosing the next step, again and again, the inner runner reveals the truth, that freedom is found not in avoiding effort, but in embracing it, not in stopping when it hurts, but in continuing until you discover the strength beyond the pain. When you find your inner runner, you no longer measure your worth by how quickly you reach the finish line or how flawless your steps appear. You measure it by your willingness to continue, your commitment to rise, and your faith in the journey itself. Life will always present challenges, but with your inner runner awake, you will face them not with fear but with persistence, not with doubt but with determination, not with chains but with freedom. Chapter 10. Living Unchained. To live unchained is not a single moment of liberation. It is not one dramatic act after which all challenges disappear and every obstacle is gone. Living unchained is a way of being, a daily practice of freedom, a mindset that transforms the way you meet yourself, the way you walk through the world, and the way you shape your future. It is the ongoing decision to no longer accept the invisible chains of fear, doubt, limitation, and negativity as the authors of your story. It is the choice to step into each day with the knowledge that you hold the key, that you can move forward, and that you are not defined by what once held you back. For many, the idea of freedom has always seemed distant, like a destination far away, something to be reached someday if all goes well. But living unchained is not about someday. It begins in the present moment, with the recognition that you are already capable of choosing differently. Freedom is not the absence of responsibility or struggle. It is the ability to meet responsibility and struggle with clarity, courage, and purpose. Living unchained means you face difficulties not as walls that imprison you, but as doors that lead to growth. Think of the journey we have taken so far. At the beginning, you learned to recognize your chains, the fears, the doubts, the expectations, and the patterns that silently restricted you. You began to see that many of these chains were not as strong as they appeared, that they were illusions shaped by repetition and belief. You saw that limitations were often lies, and that your story, once thought to be fixed, could be rewritten. You discovered the role of discipline, of breaking fear cycles, of resilience, of silencing toxic voices, of building confidence, of awakening your inner runner. Each of these steps was not just a chapter in an audiobook, but a practice, an invitation to take real action in your life. And now, in this final chapter, the invitation is to bring all of these lessons together, to embody them, and to live daily as one who has broken free. Living unchained begins with identity. For too long, you may have defined yourself by your struggles, by your mistakes, by the chains that once confined you. But now you see that those chains were never the truth of who you are. They were experiences, influences, and beliefs that shaped you, but they were not your essence. To live unchained is to redefine yourself not as someone limited, but as someone capable, resilient, and free. It is to wake each morning and affirm not only what you hope to become, but what you already are. Someone strong enough to meet the challenges of life, someone worthy of growth, someone deserving of freedom. This shift in identity changes the way you engage with the world. When chains define you, you approach opportunities with hesitation. You see risks as threats and setbacks as evidence that you should not continue. But when freedom defines you, you see opportunities as invitations, risks as paths to growth, and setbacks as part of the process. You carry yourself differently. Your voice grows steadier, your steps grow firmer. Your choices reflect not the fear of chains, but the clarity of freedom. Living unchained also requires presence. Many people spend their lives trapped in the past or consumed by the future. They replay old mistakes, rehearse old failures, and allow memories to dictate their present. Or they live in constant anticipation of tomorrow, waiting for conditions to be perfect before they act, waiting for courage to arrive before they take a step. Living unchained is the practice of being here, now. It is acknowledging the past as a teacher, but not a prison, acknowledging the future as a horizon, but not a barrier. It is the decision to take today as the only moment where freedom can truly be lived. Another essential aspect of living unchained is alignment. Freedom is not about doing everything at once or chasing every possibility. It is about aligning your actions with your deepest values. When your life reflects what matters most to you, you no longer need to seek validation from outside. You no longer need to prove yourself by following paths that others expect. You live with integrity, and that integrity itself becomes a source of peace and strength. Each decision becomes simpler because it is measured not by fear or comparison, but by whether it brings you closer to the person you choose to be. Living unchained also means embracing growth as a way of life. Chains thrive in stagnation, in the belief that you must remain as you are, that change is impossible. Freedom thrives in growth, in the knowledge that you are always evolving, always capable of learning, always able to expand beyond your current state. To live unchained is to welcome growth not as something to endure reluctantly, but as something to seek with anticipation. You understand that every challenge, every discomfort, every unfamiliar path is an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and freer. Part of this growth comes from resilience, the energy you discovered in earlier chapters. Living unchained does not mean life will suddenly become easy. Storms will come, losses will occur, setbacks will test you. But resilience ensures that these do not chain you again. Each time you rise, you affirm your freedom. Each time you choose to continue, you prove that your spirit is stronger than your circumstances. Over time, resilience becomes less of a reaction and more of a way of being. You meet life with steadiness, knowing that no matter what comes, you have within you the energy to rise. Living unchained also means carefully curating the voices you allow into your life. Chains often return through toxic voices that remind you of old doubts, that attempt to pull you back into old patterns. To remain free, you must continue to set boundaries, to choose supportive influences, and to nurture an inner voice that is steady and kind. The louder your own voice grows, the less power external voices hold. You become your own guide, your own encourager, your own reminder of freedom. Confidence, too, is essential for living unchained. Not the shallow confidence of appearance or performance, but the deep confidence built through action, practice, and persistence. It is the confidence of one who knows their strengths and accepts their imperfections, who trusts themselves not because they never fail, but because they always rise. This confidence allows you to step boldly into new opportunities, to face challenges with courage, and to live without constant fear of judgment. Confidence does not remove all uncertainty, but it makes uncertainty bearable, because you know you are capable of meeting whatever arises. And of course, living unchained requires persistence, the spirit of the inner runner. Life will always present moments when stopping seems easier, when the weight of effort feels heavy, when the temptation to give up whispers in your mind. But the inner runner reminds you that you can take another step, that beyond fatigue lies strength, that beyond the wall lies renewal. Living unchained is not about never feeling tired. It is about continuing anyway, trusting that endurance itself brings transformation. When all of these elements come together, identity, presence, alignment, growth, resilience, boundaries, confidence, and persistence, freedom becomes not just a possibility, but a reality. You no longer live bound by old chains. You live with clarity, courage, and purpose. You wake each day not as one waiting for permission to begin, but as one already moving, already living, already free. But living unchained is not only for yourself. Freedom carries responsibility. When you live unchained, you become an example for others. Your courage gives them courage. Your persistence gives them hope. Your growth gives them permission to grow. Every chain you break sends a message to those still bound, that freedom is possible, that limitations are not absolute, that the key lies within them too. In this way, your journey becomes more than personal. It becomes a gift, a ripple that extends outward, touching lives beyond your own. As you reflect on this journey, remember that chains will always try to return. Fear will whisper again, doubt will knock again, voices will attempt to distract again, but you are no longer unaware. You see the chains clearly now, and because you see them, they no longer hold the same power. Living unchained is not about never facing chains again. It is about knowing that whenever they appear, you hold the strength to break them. And so, as this book nears its end, your journey continues. The chapters here are not the conclusion, but the beginning of a new way of living. You have learned to recognize your chains, to see through the lie of limitations, to rewrite your story, to embrace discipline, to break the fear cycle, to harness resilience, to silence toxic voices, to build confidence, to awaken your inner runner. Now, you are invited to live daily with these truths, to embody them, to carry them into every step of your life. Freedom is not distant, it is here. It is in your choices, in your perspective, in your persistence. To live unchained is to live awake, to live with courage, to live with the unshakable belief that you are capable of more than you once imagined. So let this be your reminder, your affirmation, your call. The chains you carried were never locked. The power to break them was always within you. And now, with each step you take, with each choice you make, with each act of courage you embrace, you are living as you were meant to live, free, purposeful, unchained. You have walked through the journey of breaking chains of fear, of doubt, of limitation, of the voices that once defined you. You have learned that freedom is not something granted to you from the outside, but something awakened within. You have discovered that every step forward, no matter how small, is a declaration of strength. You have seen that resilience, persistence, and confidence are not gifts of fortune, but choices, practices, and truths available to you at any moment. Now, the question is no longer whether freedom is possible. You know it is. The question is what you will do with it. How will you choose to live each day now that you see the chains were never locked? How will you step into your life with courage, with clarity, and with purpose? Living unchained is not about waiting for tomorrow. It is about acting today. It is about speaking when you once stayed silent, moving when you once stood still, daring when you once retreated. It is about shaping your story with your own hands, your own voice, your own vision. So carry this truth with you. The limits holding you back were illusions, and you are stronger than you have ever believed. Each time you rise, each time you take another step, you affirm your freedom. And the world is waiting to see you live as only you can, waiting to feel the impact of your courage, waiting to witness what happens when someone chooses to live unchained. This is your time, this is your story, and you hold the key.